All right, you guys, as promised, a video for question 68. And here we're going to use all of our trig functions, our sine, our cosine, our tangent. So I'm just going to quickly write up here our SOHCAHTOA. Right? So sine is opposite and hypotenuse, cosine, adjacent and hypotenuse, tangent, opposite and adjacent. Remember, tangent's the slope one. And then I'm going to go ahead and just highlight on each, maybe in yellow, highlight on each triangle the hypotenuse so we know what we're looking at, right? And the hypotenuse is the only side that does not touch the right angle. So the right angle should not get yellow, any yellow on it. The other two angles are going to get some yellow on it, okay? So these are all the hypotenuse, so we know which is which. Okay. All right, so in this first one, we're looking at this angle. Remember, the sides might be different if you're looking at a different angle. And we have a number on the hypotenuse, and we want to know the opposite. That's the opposite side because it is not touching the angle. So hypotenuse and opposite, that's going to be sine. Hypotenuse and opposite is going to be sine, right? So the sine of 28 degrees is equal to the opposite first, so x over 19. And we're lucky when the number's on the denominator because it makes it a one-step process. We multiply both sides by 19. When we multiply by 19, because this is really x divided by 19, so when we're multiplying, it's crossing that out. It's creating a 1 there. It's just 1x. Okay? And then let's just put this whole thing in. You don't need to put the sine of 28 first and then 19 later. But remember, we're in degrees, so let me open the calculadora. The first thing I'm going to do when this opens is make sure that we are in degrees. So I'm going to hit mode. And it's in radians. I'm going to arrow down twice over once. I think it's actually 3 or 4 times in the ones we have in class. Hit enter, so I'm in degrees. Second quit takes me back out. And maybe just clear takes you back out too, somebody said. Yeah. And then I'm just going to clear this. So I'm looking for 19 times sine 28. And that had a parenthesis, so I'm going to close it. Enter. Approximately 8 point. If I'm, the test is going to have us round to the tenths. So in this one, this is 8.9 is in the 10th spot, but to know if that changes, I look at the one after it, it's a 1, which means it just stays 8.9. So I'm going to actually, I'll put that here, but I'm going to erase this, so I'll put it x equals 8.9. Cool. All right, let's keep going. You will be happy to know B is so much easier because in a 40, if this angle is 45, that means this angle is 45 too. And if these angles are the same, it also means these sides are the same. So here, x is just 8. Don't do more work than you need to do. Okay, in this one, I'm looking at the angle that's 61, and in this case, 18 is my adjacent side because this side actually touches the angle, right? If I were going to highlight it with blue, it would make the angle green because those sides are going to touch the hypotenuse and this is going to touch, so it's the adjacent side. So the adjacent hypotenuse means I'm going to use cosine. So my angle is 61, so the cosine of 61 degrees is equal to, that's a degree sign there, is equal to, and it says my adjacent over the hypotenuse, so 18, and then the hypotenuse is x. So it's a two-step process because the variable's on the denominator. So the first step is still to multiply by that denominator, multiply both sides by x, and here it cancels out. And now I have x times the cosine of 61 degrees. And I know you're tempted to put the cosine of 61 degrees in the calculator and get a number answer, but that's going to give you a rounding error. Just wait until the end, okay? Then we're going to divide both sides to get x by itself, because now it says times. To get x by itself, we need to divide by the cosine of 61. Divide both sides. So x is going to be equal to, because that makes 1. And then in the calculadora, we can put in, maybe I'll bring it all the way over to this side. And And the calculator will put 18 divided by the cosine of 61, close that parenthesis, enter, 37.12. And I know that that is most likely correct because this needs to be the longest side. Oops. So let's say I want to go just to the 10th place, that'd be 37.1. I look at the 2, nope, it's going to stay 1, so 37.1. Okay. I have 3 minutes before, oh no, I'll be able to get this done, you guys. I was kind of rushing a little bit, but you guys can pause it. Okay, D, I have the angle, the hypotenuse, and the opposite, so that's going to be sine. So that is the sine of 25 is equal to the opposite 6 over x. Oh, let me write this up here again. So this is going to be so you guys can see that. X on the denominator, so a two-step process. Multiply both sides by x. Then divide both sides by the sine of 25. Divide, so this will be 6 divided by sine of 25. So x equals 6 divided by sine of 25, 14.19. 14.2, did you guys see that quick enough? If I was rounding it correctly, it'd be 0.2. So that's here, 14.2. Okay, what's next? We have our angle. We have the opposite and the hypotenuse. So opposite and hypotenuse is sine. So the sine of 30 equals x over 42. Oh, lucky, numbers on the denominator, so I just multiply both sides by 42. Okay, so your answer will be sine of 30 times 42. And sometimes I put in the number first and sometimes I put in this first. It doesn't matter when you're multiplying. When you're dividing, it does matter, so be careful. Times 42, 21. What? That means the sine of 30 must be 1/2, right? X equals 21. Okay. All right, so here we have our angle at 0 degrees. Don't worry about that. Let's see how it turns out. And we have the opposite and we have the adjacent. Also, this is going to be tangent. It's been a while, huh? So the tangent, because we have the opposite and the adjacent, that's the ones we're using. So the tangent of 0 degrees, which is weird, right? There's a ratio that's going to be 0, is equal to x over 63. Multiply both sides by 63. And I think the tangent of 0 is 1, and let's see if that works. 63 times tangent of 0, close that parenthesis, 0. So it's just 0, so tangent of 0 is 0. So word, that's not always the case from everything we know about zeros, but for here we know that x is 0, which means it's just going to be a flat line, right? All right, 2 more, you guys. Here we have our angle, adjacent, hypotenuse, so it's going to be cosine. So the cosine of 73 equals x over 3. Love it when the number's on the denominator. Just multiply both sides by 3. Although once you get the hang of this, you'll realize you might not have to do it all the way if the variable's on the denominator, then you're going to take the number and divide it by the cosine instead of multiplying. So maybe you'll be able to just remember that. It goes a little bit quicker. So this is 3 times cosine of 73. Okay. I want to make sure I didn't flip back into, it just seems like a weird number to me, although maybe not because it's close to 1 and the hypotenuse is 3. I'm just going to check my mode. Yep, still in degrees. So that is correct. So it's just going to be 0.9. So x for this one equals 0.9. That's cool. And then the bottom one, here's our angle. So we have the adjacent and the opposite. So you guys, we have tangent, and it's the opposite over the adjacent. So the tangent of 42 degrees is equal to x over 12. Oh, good, another number on the bottom, times 12 on each side. So x is equal to 12 times tangent of 42, 10.8. Cool. Beautiful. All right, you guys, please watch this and be prepared for our test.